On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Future's Shadow Part 1, The Clandestine Gate by Bell Witch. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast.
Yeah, right?
I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we're talking about the new Bell Witch album. And the reason why I started laughing is because we basically screamed the name of the band at each other in the first part of the intro. we locked eyes and said it as forcefully as possible.
It was like an awkward moment.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I had forgotten because they had been talking about they had been teasing they were going to release something new. And then last week after we recorded, it was announced that they were going to be. They announced the release date of the album like a day before it came out. So I immediately decided, new Bell Witch. Obviously, that's what we're going to be talking about this week. And now here we are.
By the way, I've already got, because I know you pretty well. I know what your favorite track on this is.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like you maybe don't know me as well as you think you do. If you really are trying to figure out my favorite track on this album. It is weird to call so this we'll talk more about the album in a while. This is very much in the same vein as their previous album, Mirror Reaper from 2017, in that it is a single track. Right. That is 83 minutes long. It's the same length as Mirror Reaper. In fact, I assume that was intentional. And there are going to be two more parts to this. It's supposed to be a three-part album. I don't know when those are going to come out. I don't know if it's going to be a similar gap between, this and the next part of the album as there was between. I guess it kind of depends. I kind of consider the album they put out with Aerial Ruin to be more of a collaborative album and less of like a Bell Witch album.
Sure.
But that, I don't know. I'm not super fond of that album just because, to me, the thing I love the most about Bell Witch is just the, having just the drums and the organ and then the 6-string bass, whereas the Stygian Bow, or Stygian?
Stygian, I think.
Stygian Bow included a lot of acoustic guitar, which is what Eric Mogridge brought in from Aerial Ruin. It's not quite what I wanted out of a Bell Witch album. This is what I wanted. And I'm excited to talk more about it later on in the episode.
So does this mean 166 more minutes of Bell Witch?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Whenever it gets released, I would imagine so. And they are also designed to be a loop. Like when the third album or third release, third part comes out. Yeah. The end of that one is meant to loop back around to the beginning of this one. So you could just listen to them on repeat. Wow. Which that would be an experience, definitely.
It would be.
But how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm kind of sleepy. I think working the two jobs is sort of sapping my energy.
Well, and today, you work on Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Tuesdays and Fridays. Okay. So yeah, you were up late last night and you were working. So it makes sense that you'd be sleepy. Yeah. I just haven't been sleeping well because I am irresponsible. It's okay, man. You can be irresponsible.
I've been tired.
There's only one person that you need to stay well and happy and, sheltered for, and that's her.
I have a cat on my lap.
Yeah.
Is she a person? Are you a person?
She's the blood god.
That's true. Well, she's more like a force of nature than a person. She's an idea. She's the idea of violence, but she is calm right now.
Yeah, it's a predator that shits in your home.
Exactly. This tiny little predator. It is weird to me that
I mean, a creature as small as a cat is really the only predator of that kind that we could really like truly make friends with. Because like dogs, we were able to make friends with and domesticate because dogs are very social animals.
Right.
And so there's a lot of like most domestic animals are animals that are very social. I can't think of very many like solitary animals that humans have domesticated. Cats, on the other hand, are not entirely antisocial, but like they're mostly solitary kind of creatures.
I feel like domesticating them took a Herculean feat.
It kind of didn't happen in the sense that cats sort of were just around and gradually figured out like, hey, if we're not afraid of them, they'll give us food.
Yeah, and plus they have all this grain storage around their home,
and
which means
mice everywhere.
Exactly.
So yeah, they kind of is kind of, you know, it's more symbiotic than, you know, some people like to joke like cats are, you know, aren't domesticated or they domesticated them. There was more to it than that, but people also like genuinely didn't really start breeding, like intentionally breeding cats until like the last century, when people started looking at cats as pets rather than, I mean, broadly speaking anyway, that's, you know, people have kept cats as companions for a very long time.
Thousands of years.
But on like a global level, cats as household pets didn't become particularly popular until the last century or so. I think if you were the type of person who kept a cat as like their personal pet was probably a bit rarer in a lot of parts of the world before the last few centuries. Whereas people, you know, were much more fond of dogs, generally speaking. But
I have no pets.
You have no pets?
Not anymore.
Have you thought about getting a cat?
I've thought about it, but then I come to my senses quickly.
Why?
I don't want another living thing in my home.
That's like the most bleak way you could have put that.
Yeah.
I just don't want another living thing. This man has 5 children.
Yeah. They don't live with me.
That's true. And also that might be a contributing factor for like I've had other living things in my home for a very long time that I have been responsible for caring for, and it's nice to not have to do that every day.
I've played this tour. The lights are down.
I can understand. I can understand that. But thinking about like domestication of animals, like if there was a big cat we were going to domesticate, in theory, it would be lions because lions are very social. The problem with that is when a lion doesn't agree with you, it can very easily kill you.
Right.
Versus it's a little bit harder. It was a little harder for wolves and dogs and whatnot.
You know, this is the very reason why when Europeans came to the Americas, it killed so many people, not because of violence. I mean, there was a lot of violence. They were shitty when they got here, but from diseases.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have those because there's no domesticable animals native to North America. What are you going to domesticate, a fucking bison?
Caribou, theoretically.
Can you domesticate a caribou?
That's what reindeer are. They're literally the same animal.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they didn't really have that. I mean,
there wasn't effort. I think there's animals that could have been domesticated. There just wasn't effort that was put forth into them. Like, I think deer are relatively easy to domesticate. You just got to put them in a pen.
But are they gonna? Yeah.
It just wasn't done. But I think there are plenty of animals that could have been. They just hadn't been.
I mean, they didn't have pigs and cows and sheep.
Yeah, they didn't need. There was so many millions and millions upon millions of buffalo or bison roaming. Like, there was no need to domesticate the bison because there was so fucking many of them. And then Europeans showed up and went, what if there were none? You like to eat those, do you? Well, we don't like you, so we're going to kill all of them.
That's just fucked up.
Because we're fucking psychopaths. Yeah. Anyway, that's a wonderfully comfortable topic, isn't it? for this relaxing podcast where we talk about metal.
Yes, exactly.
Are we I don't think we're a relaxing podcast.
You don't think we're very relaxing?
I think people can put us on in the background and just kind of half or quarter listen to what we're saying. And in that way, it's kind of relaxing.
I feel like that applies to maybe every bit of work you and I ever do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how intently most people listen to the vast majority of the stuff that we put out.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine by me.
You know, it actually weirds me out a little bit when I'll get to my night job and they'll say, I heard you on the radio today. Here's the thing you said. It made me laugh out loud. I'm like, fuck, people were listening to that?
Shit. I said some stuff.
That was broadcast.
I said some weird things today. Yeah, there is a certain, it is one of the things that I like about radio though, where like, I don't know. I mean, you've been doing it a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
But, and also are a lot more known to a lot more people because you actually,
because I'm old.
And in your life, you have gone out and done things.
Sure.
Whether or not you wanted to or were comfortable doing so, you have gone out and done things.
That is true.
I have not. I don't like to and don't want to. And so like I'm not like a known quantity around town, generally speaking. And like people I think I have to imagine I have gone to like stores in town.
You have to imagine you've gone to stores in town?
Yeah, I imagine I have. I can't remember, actually. It's really weird. I step out my front door and everything just like I black out. I might have killed somebody. I don't know.
Sometimes you'll wake up and, oh my God, I have a new set of towels.
How did that happen? That hasn't happened.
That's already happened.
I really should. I should get new. But anyway,
odds are.
What I was thinking is like, you know, I probably have gone to like liquor stores or that sort of thing where they might be actively playing our radio station. And they'll look at my ID and not connect the dots.
Right.
Like, and that's fine by me. I'm okay with that. I wouldn't be like upset or uncomfortable, but I don't know if anybody that I do not personally know has like recognized me because of my job. I don't, I can't think of anybody, any complete stranger that has like heard my voice and gone like, are you on the radio?
See, that happens to me quite a bit.
I think your voice is a little more distinctive.
Perhaps.
And you sound a bit, I think your speaking voice is closer to how you sound on the radio than mine is.
Maybe.
I think your on-air voice and your regular speaking voice are closer together than mine are.
And plus, a lot of people have been listening to me speak for, 26 years.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, I had a woman say that to me the other day. She says, oh, I know who you are. I've been listening to you my entire life. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Oh, God.
This
feeling it's that feeling of you drank from the wrong cup.
Yeah.
you drank from the wrong grail.
Yeah.
You're just fading away.
I chose poorly.
You chose poorly. You felt like a vital and a vital adult middle-aged man with years ahead of you, and then suddenly you were ancient. Mm-hmm. You were an ancient
Although,
being.
if you do the math, there's no way I'm in midlife.
I mean, even like not putting it like bleakly.
Yeah.
Most American men die by the time they're 80.
Right.
Anyway, and you're almost 50, so you're not incorrect.
Right. Yeah. I got a couple of decades tops.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
To quote I can't fucking talk today. I was going to say Trish Krager.
Trish Krager? Okay.
Chris Traeger from Parks and Recreation.
Oh, sure.
Scientists believe that the first person to live to be 150 years old has already been born, and I believe I am that person. I'm never going to die.
Kale, do you have 0% body fat?
No. No, I don't. But I wouldn't like.
I'm a microchip.
What the fuck would 150 even look like? Like,
I mean, even, thinking like, okay, as we go into the future that, they may develop medicines and technologies, like, is a theoretical 150-year-old person going to look like what a 105-year-old person looks like today? Or is it going to be some newer, even more decrepit stage of human existence that we're just going to unlock? You're going to be even more, withered.
Well, the technology they recently begun to master, the whole uploading your personality to the internet thing.
God, that never ends well.
Yeah,
fiction.
well, okay, in fiction, yeah. But here's my question: if we're just now at this time learning that we can do that, are we sure we haven't done it already?
I don't know. Well, and here's the thing: that's not really you, though.
Right?
Like, there's no continuance of consciousness there. It's you become two separate beings,
right?
Effectively.
But I wonder if they haven't perfected it, a long time ago,
secretly.
Yeah, or just in like IRL, and we just don't know about it here.
That's what ChatGPT is.
Right.
ChatGPT is actually Walt Disney. It's actually Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And it stands for good.
Got to pee.
I was trying. I went with Walt Disney and then was like, make a joke about the acronym, and there was nothing there.
You were GTP.
Is it GTP or GPT?
GPT. Or maybe
we're not
GPT.
Qualified to make any jokes about this anymore.
We need to move on.
Absolutely. But yeah, like the uploading your brain to a computer of some kind. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't want to do that because again, it's like that's not you.
Maybe
it's but
maybe you think it's you.
Well, it will think it's you. Mm-hmm. But you will not think it's you.
Well, I mean, but you've been dead a long time now, Kale.
Oh, you're saying that this has already happened to me.
Right.
And this is all just
happened to all of us. The Earth is gone.
Oh, okay. We're all just computer programs. It's the Matrix.
Right.
It's okay.
We're in a box floating in space.
Oh wait, are we the Borg?
No, because we don't have a corporeal form.
Oh, okay. We're just computer programs floating around in a space cube. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's difficult to prove that's not true.
Right.
But that,
can't prove a negative.
That's just solipsism, basically. Right. Mm-hmm. And
is it solipsistic in here? Or is it just me?
Hey, I mean, it's not actually the technical definition of solipsism. I'm sure is different because in solipsism, you're thinking it's just you and only you.
Right.
Whereas in that hypothetical situation, it's totally true.
Right.
You would be aware of each other and everyone. People, there are still other people. Mm-hmm. It's just the reality of you all exist in together is false.
Right.
I don't know if there's a term for that, but I don't know. Who cares?
You realize everybody right now has decided that we are just high out of our minds.
Yeah, no, that's. I feel like people make that assumption about most episodes of this podcast, even though it's never been true.
I know you're totally not high.
Never. Never ever.
Right.
I am only low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're pretty low, right?
I listen. Look.
You listen to Bellwitch.
When I was a young man, I heard a song by a poet named Lil Jon. And he told me to get low several times over.
Low.
And I listened to him. That's not actually Lil Jon's part, though. He's a feature. He's featured on that song. Whose song is that?
It's I don't remember off the top of my head.
Is that like Ludacris or?
No.
I'm actually gonna have to look this up because it has occurred to me I never have known who actually sings that song.
I do remember one thing that Lil Jon.
It does say Lil Jon as the primary artist that he's credited as.
Yeah.
Lil Jon and the Yin Yang Twins.
Right.
But the primary artist there is Lil Jon, apparently.
Sure. Yeah, but one bit of wisdom he did impart, I do recall, from that same era was skeet skeet motherfucker.
Yes.
Skeet skeet. Goddamn. Yeah.
It is funny to me that the radio edit of that song, which has been heard at, every middle and high school dance since the song came out, which boggles the
20 years.
Maybe they don't do that anymore. I don't know. I haven't been at a middle or high school dance since I was 18.
Oh. But since last year.
So I don't know if they have finally stopped doing that. But when I was in high school still, that song was still played. And instead of saying skeet skeet motherfucker, skeet skeet goddamn, he just says skeet 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 skeet. Oh, he just continues saying it. And it's like, you know what that means, right? That's not any cleaner. It's just more cum. You have quadrupled the amount of semen.
You broke into your radio voice for a moment there, and it sounded like you were touting a new product. Lil Jon, now with more cum.
Quadruple the semen. You won't believe how much jism. It'll blow your mind.
Splooge.
It's fucking dumb. Oh, God. God damn it.
God.
I finished God of War Ragnarok, by the way.
Yes, as have I.
But good game, fantastic ending.
Yeah,
really enjoyed my time with it. I'm not quite done with it yet.
Right.
I don't know if I have the patience to kill all the berserkers or to fight.
They're not easy.
Yeah, there's one where there's fucking 3 of them at the same time. Such fucking bullshit.
Basically, the berserkers are the Valkyrie of the last game.
Yeah, and there's a Valkyrie too.
Yeah.
If I'm not gonna do all the berserkers, I'm at least gonna try and beat Gna, even though she's supposed to be like the hardest boss in the game. I am gonna resist the temptation to lower the difficulty, because I think that's a thing you can do on the fly, isn't it?
Yeah. What are you playing at?
I'm playing on Give Me Balance.
Okay.
But like I think what I'm gonna have to do is like fuck around with my build and find something that is better for fighting bosses, because I don't think the armor that I'm wearing and like the amulet jewels that I've got and all that, I don't think it's necessarily great for like high single target damage and that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm wearing like the tier armor that's got like the blue and gold with like the wolves on it, because I thought it looked cool, and it makes Kratos look like a space marine. It makes him look like an ultramarine, which has a lot of synergy with the Omega symbol that's on his back, which I always think in Warhammer, it's weird that the ultramarines use the Omega symbol as like their chapter badge when they're explicitly Roman themed.
Yeah, and that's a Greek letter.
It's a Greek letter. But I think part of that is just Games Workshop in the 80s, not really knowing or caring.
Yeah.
And then that having become an extremely established part of that chapter's iconography, so they can't change it anymore.
Yep.
But had a lot of fun with God of War Ragnarok.
Great game.
Ending made me cry.
Yeah.
Made me cry some tears. Some good stuff.
There's
also the music.
Oh God.
Well, like, okay, so I've been listening to like the soundtrack. I keep on pointing at my PS5 box because the characters are on the box.
I get that.
But I've been listening to the soundtrack, and like the main theme is in most ways exactly the same as the 2018 game, but they just made it so much bigger.
Right.
Like it's somehow so much more massive and carries like so much more like emotional sort of weight.
Right. And, and especially when you get close to the end of the game there and there's just so much emotion in there. I mean, there's that scene. Well, I don't want to spoil the game for anybody, but there's a really sad sort of a send-off scene.
Yes.
Then the music there is just haunting.
Yeah. Well, and somewhat connected to that, there is, I do, it's not a huge spoiler, but there is a dwarven bard who shows up, who plays the hurdy-gurdy.
Right.
And I was looking at him, I was like, why does he look familiar? Why does this character also like Rabe? That's a weird name for a dwarf to have. That's not a Scandinavian name. And then it occurred to me, it's like, oh, that's just Bear McCreary.
Yeah,
the composer of the game's soundtrack, and Rabe is Bear backwards. So, like it took me, like I was looking at him, I was like, this guy looks familiar.
Yeah, it's just
it's just Bear McCreary, but the size of a dwarf.
Right.
Amazing story. Great stuff. And I will, soon depart to do some other video gamery. I don't know what I want to play next. Probably Dead Space remake.
I was going to suggest, even though I had a hard time with it and I need to revisit it again because I've played another one of this company's
Bloodborne?
games. Yeah,
that's on the list, definitely. Yeah. I think I'm going for like newer stuff first.
You will love Bloodborne.
I know I will. I've known that since I decided I liked Dark Souls that I will enjoy Bloodborne.
That was probably part of the decision. Because you thought at some point a little piece of it you knew.
A little bit, yeah. As I needed something to eventually play Bloodborne on.
So you bought a PS5.
So I bought a PS5. And I could also play the Demon Souls remake, but I don't know. There are features in it that are just worse versions of the things that have kept me from playing Dark Souls 2.
Oh, really?
Like Demon Souls really, really punishes you for dying.
Right.
Which strikes me as such bullshit because it's a FromSoft game. That's
You're going to die.
It's practically how you play the game is by dying over and over again to figure things out. And Demon Souls punishes you in multiple ways.
Right.
So
you come back with less health or whatever.
You come back with less health. There is a system called World Tendency, which I don't understand at all how it works. Like there's just some real esoteric stuff that FromSoft decided to never do again. I wonder why they decided. Maybe because it wasn't a good idea. But the remake, being faithful to the original, kept all of those things.
Sure.
Which is commendable. But I think before I get to any FromSoft thing, it's going to be the Dead Space remake because I love the original, and everybody says that the remake is even better.
Really?
That it's better than the original one. And are you doing a TikTok right now?
No, I'm doing a Snapchat.
Okay, you were like.
Yeah, I'm holding my phone and looking the other way. Like, hey, look, a candid photo. Clearly, it couldn't be because I took it.
Yes. A candid photo of myself.
A candid selfie.
That I just totally snapped accidentally. But yeah. Video games. Do you want to talk about Bell Witch?
Okay. This is the tone of voice for talking about Bell Witch.
So Bell Witch is an American doom metal band from Seattle, Washington, in the United States of America. And they were founded in 2010 by two guys, Dylan Desmond, who plays bass and vocals, and the late Adrian Guerra. It's Guerra.
Guerra, yeah.
Guerra. Adrian passed away in 2016, I believe, and was replaced by Jesse Schreibman, who's been with the band ever since. But it is a two-piece and has remained a two-piece of just 6-string bass and drums, accompanied by some Hammond organ. But I presume that is the sort of thing that would be played on a backing track live. Or
unless they have touring... unless they have touring musicians.
I don't think they do.
No?
I haven't watched a ton of live performances from them. I also don't recall if I've seen anything where like the Hammond organ gets played. They might just go without the extra elements for live performances. I don't know, but
that would make it more stark.
Yes, and that's this music really needs to be more stark and depressing. But I think if you like just listen to the albums with like no context of the fact that it's just two guys and it's just a bass guitar and drums, you probably wouldn't realize it necessarily, because if there's one thing Dylan Desmond excels at, it is getting a truly insane amount of range out of just a bass guitar. The leads he is able to play, it is a 6-string bass, but like the leads he's able to get out of it, all of the different tones, the melodies, like it, I before I listened to Bell Witch, I didn't quite understand just how much you could get out of just a bass guitar in this capacity. Like obviously, different music genres tend to be a lot more bass led, and you can, funk, for example, like you can do pretty amazing things with bass and funk, and you can like there's different genres that do different, get different things out of their bass guitars. Right. But in metal, I wouldn't have thought that a bass guitar could deliver, leads like the way it happens on Bell Witch. It's awesome. He must have very strong fingers. Because I like seeing him, the videos I've seen played live, like most of the leads are like tapped. But if you like listen and pay attention, you'll notice that like the rhythm, I guess, the bassy part of the bass rather than the leads is usually hit at the same time as he hits some other string. Sure. So he's usually like playing the lower strings with his thumb and then tapping with his other fingers. And it's very impressive. It's very impressive to me to see the way that he plays. It's awesome.
I'm trying to imagine now what this would sound like if it was funky.
If Bell Witch was funky.
If they took this and they made a funk version of it.
It'd be the slowest funk band in existence. I don't know if you can funkify this. I don't know if this music can be made funky. I think there is a level of life and vibrancy that is an undercurrent of all funk music that this distinctly and purposefully lacks. Right. This is, I mean, their specific subgenre is called funeral doom for a reason, I think. It is, it's very dirge-like. It has those, those qualities, and that is generally the subject matter of their lyrics. Bell Witch also always has really awesome album cover. I don't know who did the art for this album. I don't know if it was the same guy that did the art for the previous album.
Mirror Reaper?
Yeah, I think that guy may have died. I can't remember that. I might be getting that guy confused with the guy who his work was inspired by, which was Mariusz Lewandowski. Okay. Who was a Polish painter known for doing like all these, nightmarish like landscapes and these big, weird like honeycomb like building, like very it's like if H.R. Giger did like landscape paintings and stuff. A lot of like modern prints of like H.P. Lovecraft books will have this guy's artwork on the cover. But so a guy
he was also a White House intern during the Clinton administration.
You were waiting. You were waiting with that. Like, I wonder. Whatever. I'm just gonna move on from that. So I don't know who did the cover art for this, but it looks like a Hieronymus Bosch painting. Right. It's like hellish and nightmarish, in much the same way that many Hieronymus Bosch paintings were.
And even Bosch's stuff that wasn't nightmarish was still somehow nightmarish.
It was still surreal.
Yeah, it was still hard to look at, but you couldn't stop looking at it.
Bizarre. Yeah. But there was a very specific period of his career where he was painting just his idea of what hell looks like, basically. And boy, it was freaky. But it's hard to, I think, talk about Bell Witch in specific terms because with this and with Mirror Reaper, it's all one big thing.
It is.
So it's hard to drill down to points because, you know, on a different album with more songs, you can say like, oh, on such and such a song, they did this thing that I really liked. And you can't do that.
No,
it's all one track.
And in fact, it's one of those things where, you know, I have kids and I have work and I have a night job and I have other stuff I'm doing. In order to listen to this, you have to have 83 minutes of time to listen to it. I mean, like other stuff, you go, I love first 2 songs. I'm going to go grocery shopping, pick up the kids. The next, you know, song, track 3, 4, and 5, listen to those, you know.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
There's like stopping points.
Yeah, there's stopping points.
There are definitely movements in this album, much the same way that there were on Mirror Reaper. The concept, the musical concept of movements is something that is traditionally associated with classical music.
Right.
Where you have big like symphonies and that sort of thing, where it is all technically one continuous track.
But there are
parts that have certain riffs essentially. And that have a thematic beginnings and endings to them, and this album definitely has those. But on 4 listen throughs or however many times I've listened to it, like I don't have a great feel for like the time code of when those are. I'm sure at some point there will be like. If there is, an official stream of this on YouTube or something like that, someone in the comments will probably have those labeled, or there might be such a thing on like the vinyl for this, which I didn't even bother. I really should have on like Wednesday or Thursday. I really should have looked for a place to order it on vinyl, and I didn't. And of course, it's all sold out now. But
yeah, I mean, I do know that time code about 29 minutes in, it does go to a very contemplative movement, as you were saying earlier.
Yes,
where it's basically 2 notes and an occasional drum beat for a good 8 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is also, I thought it was kind of interesting because like Mirror Reaper opens up with. The slow, kind of not clean. It's close to clean anyway. The bass tones at the beginning of Mirror Reaper, before like the drums. If I remember correctly, I've listened to it very recently, but the drums are introduced at the same time as any vocals, which is Jesse's growls on Mirror Reaper.
There are a lot of clean vocals on this and harmonies and shit.
There are a lot of clean vocals on this one, and Jesse doesn't, bring in any growls until almost exactly halfway into the album. Right. Like 40 minutes in is when you start getting some of those death growls, and they sound gnarlier, but also like they something about the recording technique that they used for Jesse's vocals just is better than what it was on Mirror Reaper.
Yeah, because they sound like growls here. They sound like a voice here, whereas on Mirror Reaper, it took me a while to realize that I was hearing a person.
I think there was maybe an excess amount of reverb on them on Mirror Reaper.
Yeah.
And they tended to be a little mushier. Some of that might also come down to vocal technique. I don't know. Maybe Jesse's vocal technique has improved since then, but like there's more grit to them here, or at least it sounds like there's more grit. His voice is coming through clearer. I think the whole album in general, the production on it is just stellar.
It is.
The production is really good. My one foible with the production on this album might be something technical that could not have been avoided. And it is something that I think is only noticeable with like a really good pair of headphones, or if you just have very sensitive hearing, like I have pretty good hearing on a lot of the really slow, quiet parts. There is I don't know if it's like compressor hiss or what it is, but there is like a very quiet static or like hum.
It's amp buzz.
Amp buzz.
They're miking their amps, which that's awesome. I love mic'd amps.
And it's and that's what I was thinking. It was like either this is, just a technical thing from the way that they recorded it, or it's something that the producer didn't look at it, but like it definitely occurred to me as like, oh, it's probably just the way they recorded it and it's fine. And like I learned to ignore it, but it's something that I'm not used to hearing because the vast majority of metal that I listen to, it's impossible to hear it. Right. Because it's so much faster and more chaotic. The sound is so much fuller at all times that you would never hear amp buzz, but
because you work so hard as a guitarist, you work really hard on getting the EQ and all the effects and everything just the way you like it, and that's going to sound way different hearing it through your cabinet than it does if you plugged it directly into a computer.
Yeah,
that's going to be way different. In fact, I've been recording with this guy named Taggart here in Minot in his studio. Recorded a song, guitar part for a song, and he's like, so what do you think? I said, well, this is pretty cool. You kind of have me directed my solid state head directly into your system here, and you can just erase this. I'll be right back. I went home and I got your amp. I got my cabinet, and
well, because it just sounds so much more natural.
It does.
And it really also kind of depends on what genre of music you're doing too. Like if you're doing, some really fast, like technical death metal, then I don't think there's anything wrong with, going directly into the computer. And if you've got the right tones anyway, you can sort of replicate a lot of that. But there is nothing quite like, actually miking up the amps and that sort of thing.
Right.
And like when you've got music that does get as quiet and as still, like stillness is the word I would describe some pretty big sections on this album where it's just, the bass, a couple of bass notes per minute.
Yeah.
Yep. On the high strings, like, there is a level of stillness there where, you're going to, if you're really paying attention and kind of vibing with the album, you're going to notice that maybe. But I learned to not let it bother me because it's like, oh, this is just a part of the album. It's just how it's supposed to be. There was something else that had come to mind and I do not recall. So does this album slap?
I mean, sometimes I didn't.
Sure.
It definitely slaps in that. Hey, that's really good.
That's really good. It's really impressive. And I think it definitely on certain parts is faster than any part of Mirror Reaper to my recollection. Like I on Friday, I think I listened to Mirror Reaper immediately after I listened to this, or maybe it was before. No, that was on Saturday. On Saturday, I listened to Mirror Reaper and then I listened to this, one after the other. And I would say I think there's a lot more. I think it gets faster on here than at any point on Mirror Reaper. There's also a lot more melody, I think, on this album than there was on Mirror Reaper. There's a lot more focus on those leads that I think it's a miracle Dylan is able to get out of a 6-string bass. Like it's so cool sounding. Nothing else sounds like this, and it's something that makes them deeply unique. That I also like. I want to hear more like this, but also it's like, but this is their thing,
right?
I don't want to hear people copy their thing.
I want to hear them do their thing,
exactly. Which is why I'm glad and hoping that since this is a part 1, it's not going to be terribly long until there's a part 2 and part 3. Like I hope the gap is not going to be that big.
Right.
But I don't know. That remains to be seen. I looked up some reviews. There weren't like a ton that I could immediately find that had like numbers attached to them, so I just didn't bother averaging them. It seems like the response has been pretty good so far. I think there were a couple of complaints that I read some stuff on Reddit of people. There were a couple complaints from people being like, "This is too long." Like, motherfucker, it's Bell Witch.
Did you not hear their last album?
Did you? What do you expect? I don't think it's too long. I think especially considering that what I wrote down as my favorite, because it's one track,
right?
But I wrote down I really like the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it like brings everything together.
It does. It wraps it up, and then it gives you that 6-minute cool down period at the end.
Well, and it's going to lead right into the beginning of the next one.
Right, part 2.
So yeah, I really like the last 15 minutes because it's like this big crescendo that brings everything back together. And I think it starts that build up in the distorted guitars coming back is after basically a refrain of the opening, which is like 4 or 5 minutes of that organ of the Hammond organ or whatever. It's like 4 or 5 minutes of like this haunting sort of organ tune,
right?
And there's a reprise right before the big crescendo, which I'm a sucker for that shit.
Sure,
I love me a reprise. But did you have a favorite part that comes to mind, or you thought about it all?
I kind of agree there. I agree with that, where it comes back and it brings this is like a single organ chord. It changes very slowly.
Just builds.
Yeah,
builds.
Love that.
And I love when like you can feel that it's going to build. There is this tension that keeps on ratcheting up and up and up, and you're waiting for that big hit on like the distorted bass, and then when it finally arrives, although I kind of wish they would do what they did on the first song in Four Phantoms, which they have this long section on Four Phantoms that's just like the sort of clean bass noodling, and there's no build up at all. The bass noodling kind of ends, and then they're out of nowhere the loudest fucking like. I remember I was driving and I hadn't listened to it in a while. I was like on a trip to Fargo or something, and I was on my way back, and that like big distorted bass note hit, and I almost shit my pants because it had been so quiet up until then, and I think I did the dumb thing where you're like, oh, it's really quiet, I need to turn my stereo up, and it scared the shit out of me. They give you more warning now when they're about to, get back into the heavy stuff again. But what medal are you going to bestow upon Clandestine Gate? Clandestine Gate. What medal are you going to bestow upon Clandestine Gate like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
I don't know how many times more I could listen to this because it's so I could listen to it more. I give it a silver, but
okay, I'm giving it a gold.
Yeah,
but Bell Witch is a very me sort of band.
It is. It's very
and like I've listened to this probably 4 or 5 times since it came out, and I've not gotten sick of it. To me it is kind of. I wouldn't say like perfect, like working music, but it's the sort of thing that when I am working, it is very easy for me to just like leave on, because I don't necessarily tune out, but it's like it's something that you can listen to but not be distracted by.
You know what this made me feel like listening to this?
What?
Made me feel like I had a roommate in my living room who was watching a movie maybe a little bit too loud.
And it's like
and this is what I was hearing through the wall.
It's like an action movie with like lots of rumbly explosions
and suspense areas.
What I had said in it ended up being a Facebook post about this album. Let me read it. My description for the vibe of this album, which is the vibe is dragging your own coffin across a cracked ashen wasteland, forever chasing the fading warmth and dim light of a never-ending dusk. I think that accurately describes the vibe of this album and just Bell Witch in general, I think. But I not too long ago got the most recent Berserk compendium.
Sure.
And there is some imagery in there that's very evocative of that sentiment. So that sort of imagery is on my mind.
And here's the thing: I bet if you met these guys, they'd be the most happy-go-lucky, regular plucky fellas.
I've watched some interviews, and they're not entirely not that, but they're like Dylan seems to be, like Jesse, I think seems to be a bit more like high energy and plucky than Dylan is. Dylan seems to be gives off kind of quieter, more thoughtful sort of vibes, but he's definitely got some animation to him. He's not sitting there the whole time going like, oh, I'm so miserable. I've watched a few interviews with the two of them, and they seem to be a bit more animated than like you might expect the stereotype of the type of guys that make this music would be.
Because I feel like a lot of times what makes this music so good is the fact that they had the buildup of this inside of them, and this is them getting that out.
Yeah.
And if can we talk about something depressing? And they're like, no, thanks.
That's fine.
Work. Yeah.
that's my job. I put all that in there.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about next week?
Well, okay. I went down this weird rabbit hole recently, and I realized that if you like some technical death metal, going down under is really where you're going to find a lot of it.
Australia
loves their technical death metal.
Straya.
Yeah, and I was listening to one band, and then it led me to another band. I saw the name of their band, and I thought, wow, I dated a girl a long time ago who had a similar name for her band, which was a sort of a death metal accordion band that she was doing.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
The name of this band, mothers and daughters, listen close, is called Death Fucking Cunt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
What's the name of the album?
The album that came out last year, I believe it's their sophomore effort, but it's called Decade of Perversion.
Okay, so, I mean, it's the most Australian thing.
Sure, and it's all one word.
So,
and and I listened to it, I'm like, Kale's gonna love this.
All right. Yeah. So next week we're going to talk about Decade of Perversion by Death Fucking Cunt.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Whee!
At least the episode title won't have that word in it, because the episode title is always the album name.
Right.
Instead of the band name.
And I did learn, I looked up a few things about them. They DFC on a lot of stuff that's going to be in like the store or whatever.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. I mean, they could probably get away with it in Australia.
Sure.
But outside of Australia or the UK.
It seems uncouth outside of there. Yeah.
The word is people are less fond of that word outside of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, it's just DFC at the record store at the Vatican. Yeah.
Yes, the Vatican record store.
Exactly. Where the Pope scores all his vinyl.
There's a lot of Powerwolf there. Anyway.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you'd like to listen to more episodes, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our feed on whatever device or application you're using to listen to us, or go and follow us on Facebook or Twitter if you so desire. It's up to you. So until you hear from us,
send us messages.
No,
don't send us messages.
No, I'm not going to respond to them.
Kale's phone number is.
You don't know my phone number.
I don't. I'd have to look on my phone.
Yeah. I don't know your phone number either.
Why would you?
So thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.